The garage is warmer than you think, Mom. We've left a space heater. My son Ethan doesn't meet my eyes. His gaze is fixed on a scuff mark on his expensive leather boots, as if it holds the secrets to the universe. It's Christmas Eve. Outside, the world is a postcard of winter perfection. Snow, the soft, silent kind, blankets the manicured lawns of our palatial smart home in Willow Creek, California. A home my husband built, a home I am no longer welcome in. My daughter-in-law, Sarah, an Instagram influencer with a smile as sharp and brilliant as shattered glass, adjusts her cashmere scarf. The fabric is the color of cream, and it makes her skin glow under the harsh fluorescent light of the garage. The Aspen trip was a last-minute surprise, Lily, an exclusive invite from a brand. You understand. I do. I understand perfectly. I saw the booking confirmation on the family tablet a week ago, tucked away in a deleted items folder she'd forgotten to empty. 7 nights at a 5-star ski resort, flights, spa packages, private lessons for the kids. My name was a conspicuous, deliberate absence. The trip wasn't a surprise. My exclusion was the plan. Sarah pushes a sad, plastic-wrapped microwave dinner into my hands. The plastic is cold and crinkles loudly in the sudden, thick silence. It's a Salisbury steak. I can see the gray, congealed gravy through the clear film. Just a couple of minutes on high, she says, her voice dripping with the kind of practiced patience one uses for a difficult child or a pet that isn't learning a trick fast enough. And please don't touch the main thermostat or any of the house controls. It's all programmed for energy efficiency while we're away. We wouldn't want the system to flag an error. We wouldn't want the prisoner to rattle the cage. The thought is a cold, smooth stone in my mind. Ethan finally looks up, his face a mask of strained sincerity. He has my husband's jawline, but none of his conviction. It's just for a few days, Mom. We'll be back before you know it. We'll do a proper Christmas then. He tries a smile. It doesn't reach his eyes. His eyes are full of pity, but it's the worst kind. The kind you feel for a problem. You just want to go away. He is looking at an inconvenience, an obstacle. He places a hand on my shoulder. A fleeting, weightless gesture. His touch is cold, even through my thin cardigan. For a horrifying second, I want to cling to his hand, to dig my nails into his skin and beg, "Don't leave me. Don't do this." But the impulse dies as quickly as it came, replaced by a vast, hollow numbness. My body is here, in this cold garage, but my spirit has retreated somewhere deep inside, a place their voices can't quite reach. Sarah is already wheeling her sleek, graphite-colored suitcase toward the interior door that leads into the house. "The kids are already in the car," she calls over her shoulder, her voice bright and final. "They send their love. I know they don't. I heard her telling them earlier that Grandma needs her quiet time." I heard my granddaughter Maya ask why Grandma's quiet time had to be in the place where the garbage cans are. Sarah had shushed her with a sharp hiss. The space heater they've left for me sits in the corner, a small black box with a glowing orange coil. It looks pitiful against the backdrop of stacked storage bins and my late husband Robert's dusty tools hanging on the pegboard. It's a token gesture, a performance of care meant to soothe their own consciences, not to warm my body. The cold in this place isn't just in the air. It's radiating from the concrete floor, seeping into the soles of my slippers. It's the cold of being discarded. Ethan gives my shoulder a final awkward pat and follows his wife. He doesn't look back. The interior door clicks shut. I am left staring at the smooth white surface, waiting. Seconds later, I hear the distant, heavy thud of the front door closing. And then, the sound that seals my fate, a cheerful 3-note chime, D-do-D. It's the sound of the advanced smart lock engaging, a sound Robert designed to signal security, peace of mind, a sanctuary sealed from the outside world. Tonight, it signals the opposite. My prison is now secure. I am alone. The silence that follows is not empty. It's a presence. It's filled with the low, almost sub-audible hum of the house's central nervous system, the Archimedes system, the heating, the lights, the security, the very air I'm breathing, all controlled by a ghost in the machine that they now command. The echo of their laughter, a sound I heard from the foyer as they left, seems to hang in the sterile, conditioned air, a cruel counterpoint to the hum. My fingers are stiff around the microwave dinner. I look down at it. The label promises a home-style classic. It feels like the cruelest joke of all. I walk over to the small, grimy microwave sitting on a workbench, its power cord snaking to a single, dusty outlet. I place the meal inside, punch in the time, and the box begins to hum, a sad, rattling noise that harmonizes with the greater hum of the house. While it turns, I survey my kingdom for the night, my Christmas Eve suite. There's an old, stained armchair they'd banished from the living room years ago. Boxes labeled Robert's Files, filled with blueprints and notes I was never allowed to touch. My grandchildren's old bicycles, collecting cobwebs. This isn't a room. It's a mausoleum of things no one wants anymore. I am just another one of those things. The microwave beeps. The sound is shrill, violent in the quiet. I peel back the plastic film. A plume of steam smelling of salt and preservatives billows out. The gravy is bubbling, but the mashed potatoes are still cold in the center. I don't have a fork. They didn't leave me one. I find a dusty plastic spoon in a drawer full of old screws and wipe it on my cardigan. I sit in the stained armchair, the lukewarm meal in my lap. Through the garage's small, grimy window, I can see the Christmas lights on the neighbor's house blinking red and green. They mock me with their joy. The snow falls harder, burying the world in white, burying me. Each spoonful is an act of defiance, though I'm not sure who I'm defying. Myself, perhaps. My own desire to simply lie down on the cold concrete and let the frost take me. But I eat. I eat the gray meat and the lumpy potatoes. I force it down, because a part of me, a tiny, flickering ember buried deep beneath the ashes of my humiliation, knows this. They wanted to break me. And the first rule of survival is, you don't let them win. Not completely. Not yet. My name is Lily Hayes, and I am 72 years old. It feels strange to say that number aloud, to feel the shape of it on my tongue. In my mind, I am still the young woman who saw her first computer and fell in love not with the machine, but with the language it spoke. In another life, a life that feels as distant as a star, I was a software programmer. This was back in the pioneering days, when code was a raw, elegant poetry written on humming green screen monitors, when the world was just beginning to understand the magic we were weaving with logic and light. I loved the clean, irrefutable truth of it. If this, then that. A world of order and consequence. A world that made sense. Then I met Robert. He was an architect, but calling him an architect is like calling a hurricane a breeze. He was a force of nature, a symphony of ambition and vision. His mind was a cathedral of lines and angles, of impossible structures that he would sketch onto napkins with a ferocious intensity. I was mesmerized. His brilliance was a fire, and I, who had lived my life in the cool, measured world of binary, was drawn to its heat, its wild and unpredictable light. His passion was matched only by his possessiveness, a trait I mistook for profound love in the beginning. He didn't just want to be my world, he wanted to build it, to design its every wall and window, to control the very air I breathed. And so he did. He designed this house, our house. He never called it a home. He called it his fortress against the world, a magnificent, sprawling structure of glass and steel and stone that clung to the hillside like a bird of prey. Every wire, every circuit, every sensor that controlled the temperature and the lights and the security systems, it was all his design, an extension of his own complex and controlling mind. He would walk me through the construction site, his voice booming with pride, explaining how the south-facing windows were angled to capture the winter sun but deflect the summer heat. How the ventilation system was filtered to military-grade specifications. "Nothing can touch us in here, Lily," he'd say, pulling me close. "It's perfect. It's safe." I gave up my career. It wasn't a demand, not in words. It was an expectation, as solid and unyielding as the foundation he was pouring. A man like Robert, he explained, needed a partner to manage the fortress, to be its heart while he remained its mind. My world of code and logic shrank, replaced by a world of guest lists, dinner parties, and ensuring the polish on the marble floors reflected the sky just as he'd envisioned. I became the curator of his masterpiece, the ghost in his machine. And for a long time, I convinced myself that this was a noble sacrifice, that my love was the essential, unseen element that made his genius function. I poured myself into raising our son, Ethan, within those perfect, climate-controlled walls, hoping to instill in him a warmth that the house itself lacked. When Robert's heart, that over-ambitious engine, finally gave out 2 years ago, the silence he left behind was deafening. The house, his monument, felt like a tomb. For the first time, its perfection felt sterile, its safety felt like isolation. My first thought, my only real hope in the suffocating fog of grief, was of Ethan, my son. He would be my comfort, the living, breathing piece of my old life that would anchor me to the new one. And for a few weeks, he was. He held my hand at the funeral, his grip firm and reassuring. He brought his wife, Sarah, and they stayed for dinner, filling the vast, silent kitchen with chatter. Then, with a carefully practiced earnestness, they made their proposal. "Mom, you shouldn't be here all alone," Ethan said, his hand covering mine on the cold granite countertop. "It's too much for you. We'll move in. We'll take care of you. We're family." I wept with relief. The fortress would finally become a home. I saw a future of grandmotherly duties, of holiday dinners filled with laughter, of finally feeling like the matriarch of a family instead of the keeper of a museum. I, who had been so careful with my heart, gave them the key not just to the house, but to my entire world. They moved in, and with a quiet, devastating efficiency, they began the methodical process of erasing me from my own life. My new existence is a carefully curated performance, directed by Sarah, for an audience I will never meet. My life is now governed by her rules, a set of unspoken yet rigidly enforced decrees. I no longer occupy the master suite that Robert and I shared for 40 years. That room, with its panoramic views and ensuite bath, now belongs to them. I was moved to the guest room on the lower level, a space with a small window that looks out onto a retaining wall. On her vlogs, which she films with a religious fervor, Sarah refers to it as Lily's Cozy Suite. She'll do a quick pan of the room after she's fluffed the pillows and placed a single, sad-looking flower in a bud vase on the nightstand. "We wanted Mom to have her own private space," she'll chirp to her phone, her voice dripping with manufactured sweetness. "It's so important for her to feel independent, but still close to us." Her followers leave comments praising her compassion. I see the reality. I have been relegated to the servants' quarters in the palace I once ran. The room itself is a metaphor for my life. It is decorated in muted, impersonal tones of beige and gray, the kind of inoffensive palette you'd find in a mid-range hotel. There are no photographs of Robert, no pictures of a younger Ethan, none of the small, cherished trinkets I've collected over 7 decades. Those things are in boxes in the garage, deemed clutter, that interfered with the home's minimalist aesthetic. The bed is comfortable enough, I suppose, but the sheets are always a little too crisp, the blankets a little too thin. It's a room for a visitor, a temporary occupant, a silent declaration that I am no longer a permanent fixture in my own home. My days are structured around their schedule. I wake to the sound of their alarm, a gentle, new-age chime that filters down through the floorboards. I wait until I hear their footsteps fade towards the kitchen before I venture out. The kitchen, once my domain, is now Sarah's soundstage. She often has her tripod and ring light set up by the island, filming herself making a kale smoothie or all-natural gluten-free pancakes. I am expected to stay out of the frame. I'll pour myself a cup of coffee, my movements small and quiet, and retreat back to my room. Mealtimes are the most humiliating ritual. I am no longer welcome at the main dining table. "It's just easier this way, Mom," Ethan explained one evening, his eyes refusing to meet mine. "Sarah and I have to discuss work, and, it's just complicated stuff." So I eat after they have finished. I wait in my room until I hear the scrape of their chairs and the murmur of their voices as they move to the living room to watch television. Then, I go to the kitchen. On the counter, I will find a plate, sometimes covered with plastic wrap, sometimes not. It holds their leftovers. A few spoonfuls of casserole, the slightly dried-out end piece of a chicken breast, a wilted mound of salad. I eat standing at the counter, the silence of the grand kitchen broken only by the sound of my own chewing. I eat the scraps from their table, looking out at the gardens Robert designed, a ghost in my own feast. My financial independence was the next thing to go. My social security check, the small pension from my programming days, the funds Robert left me. It was all consolidated into a new account, an account that Ethan manages. "It's to protect you from scams, Mom," he said, sitting me down with a stack of papers to sign. His voice was so reasonable, so full of concern. "The elderly are the #1 target for financial predators. I can't let that happen to you. I'll make sure all your bills are paid. You won't have to worry about a thing." I, who once managed the accounts for a multi-million-dollar estate, who wrote code that handled complex financial transactions, was now deemed incompetent to manage my own small income. If I need something, I have to ask. Last month, I wanted to buy a new book of poetry. I asked Ethan for $20. He sighed, a theatrical, put-upon sound. "Mom, is that really a necessary expense right now? Let me see if I can find a free version for you on the tablet." The tablet. Another gift from them, another tool of control. He never found the free version. I never got the book. I am a prisoner with a trust fund, a wealthy woman who has to beg for pocket money. But the cruelest part, the most intimate violation, is my unwilling role as a character in Sarah's online drama. I am her most valuable prop. She posts about me constantly, crafting a narrative of a doting family dedicated to elder care. Her phone is a constant presence, a third eye always watching, always ready to capture a moment of vulnerability. She specializes in videos that highlight my supposed frailty and confusion. Last week, she filmed me trying to operate the new television remote, a sleek, buttonless monstrosity that responds to voice commands that rarely understand my quieter, older voice. The video shows me squinting at the remote, turning it over and over in my hands, my frustration mounting. Sarah's voice can be heard from off-camera, patient and condescending. "Just say TV on, Mom. See? It's easy." The final cut, posted for her hundreds of thousands of followers, was overlaid with a sad, gentle piano track. The caption read, "Patience is a virtue, helping my wonderful mother-in-law navigate the modern world. It's a blessing to be able to care for those who once cared for us." Family. First, caring for our elders. Alzheimer's. Awareness. She used that hashtag. Alzheimer's awareness. A calculated, vicious lie that paints me as mentally incompetent, a doddering old woman, while simultaneously painting her as a saint. Her followers flood the comments with praise. "You are an angel, Sarah. Your mother-in-law is so lucky to have you. This is what family is all about." I see the truth. I see the flash of contempt in her eyes just before she hits record. I see the smirk she hides behind her hand as I struggle. I feel the cold knot of shame in my stomach as my private moments of frustration are broadcast to the world as entertainment. She is not caring for me. She is harvesting my dignity for clicks and likes. She stages photos where she is hugging me, her arms wrapped around my shoulders. In them, she is smiling brightly at the camera, a paragon of familial love. If you look closely at my face, you can see the truth. You can see the weariness in my eyes, the slight, forced curve of my lips, the tension in my shoulders as I endure the embrace. I am a ghost in my own machine, a story told by others, a sad footnote in the grand, sparkling narrative of their perfect lives. They haven't just taken my home and my money. They are taking my identity, replacing the strong, capable woman I was with this fragile, confused caricature they've created for the world to pity and to admire them for pitying. And my son, my Ethan, the boy whose scraped knees I once bandaged, whose fears I once soothed in the middle of the night, stands by and lets it all happen. He is the co-signer on my erasure, the silent partner in my slow, methodical execution. The house itself began to turn on me. It was a slow, insidious corruption, like a disease spreading through the wiring in the walls. Robert had built this place to be a sanctuary, a fortress of comfort and security. He called the AI that ran it Archimedes, after the great mind of antiquity. To him, it was a testament to order and logic. To Ethan and Sarah, it was simply a tool, and I was the thing to be managed. It started with the lights. Precisely at 9 o'clock each evening, my room would be plunged into an abrupt, non-negotiable darkness. There was no gentle dimming, no warning, just a sudden clinical click, and then nothing. It didn't matter if I was in the middle of a chapter or halfway through mending a sock. The system, programmed by Ethan at Sarah's request, had decided my day was over. The first few times, I fumbled for the manual switch on the wall, my fingers finding only a smooth, unresponsive plate. Voice commands were useless. "Archimedes, lights on," I'd plead to the silent room, my voice sounding small and thin. The house remained dark. I learned to live by the cold, blue light of the digital clock on the microwave, a constant mocking reminder of my curfew. Then came the water. My morning shower, once a small, steaming comfort, became a trial of endurance. The temperature was capped at what could only be described as aggressively lukewarm. It was just warm enough to not be freezing, but cold enough that a shiver was my constant companion. I'd stand under the spray, wrapping my arms around myself, hurrying through the motions just to be done. I once heard Sarah through the door speaking to one of her children. "No, honey, you can have a hot bath. It's just Grandma's shower that has to be conserved for the environment." The lie was so casual, so slick, it slid past her lips without a hint of friction. She was teaching my grandchildren that I was a burden on the planet. The cruelty became a kind of background noise, the constant hum of my own obsolescence. I was assigned a specific set of dishes, a chipped ceramic plate and a heavy plastic tumbler that always tasted faintly of soap. While they ate from Robert's wedding china, I was given the utensils of a child. I was never asked to sit at the main dining table for meals anymore. A small, wobbly TV tray was placed for me by the sliding glass door in the living room, isolating me from the family chatter. I'd eat my meager portion, often the leftovers from their previous night's dinner, reheated until limp. While they laughed and talked, my presence acknowledged only by the occasional, "Mom, are you done with that?" before my plate was whisked away. Their children, my grandchildren, learned from them. They began referring to me not as Grandma, but as her. "Is her food ready? Did she finish her show?" I was becoming a third-person pronoun in my own home. My television access was restricted. After 7 p.m., the main screen in the living room would lock me out, displaying a serene, looping image of a forest with the message, "Family wind-down time is in effect." The remote in my hand would be useless. It was Sarah's way of ensuring I didn't disrupt the evening's energy with my old black and white movies. The humiliations were small, but they were constant, 1,000 tiny cuts that bled me of my dignity, day by day. The worst of these, the one that made me feel truly invisible, was born from Sarah's relentless pursuit of online fame. Her phone was a permanent extension of her hand, its lens always scanning for content. I became her favorite subject. It began with the new voice-activated pantry. It was a ridiculous, over-engineered piece of technology Robert would have loathed. You had to speak a specific phrase to open it. Sarah, of course, set the phrase and changed it weekly without telling me. One afternoon, I just wanted a cracker. "Archimedes, open pantry," I said, my voice clear. Nothing. "Pantry, please open." Silence. I tried a dozen variations, my frustration mounting. From the living room, I heard a snicker. I turned to see Sarah, phone held aloft, filming me. "Say the magic words, Lily," she chirped, a wide, false smile plastered on her face. Her son, my grandson, giggled beside her. "She can't remember it." That evening, the video appeared on her TikTok. It was edited with comical sound effects, a slide whistle for every failed attempt, a cartoon bonk sound. The caption read, "My mother-in-law versus the 21st century, LOL. Had grandma fail, has smart home problems." I watched it over her shoulder as she showed it to Ethan. He laughed, a deep, genuine laugh. He looked at me, his eyes crinkling. "Oh, Mom, that's pretty funny. You have to admit." I didn't have to admit anything. I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach. The video got thousands of views. The comments poured in. "She's so clueless." "OMG, my grandma is the same way." This is gold. I was no longer Lily Hayes, a wife, a mother, a programmer who had once written code more complex than anything in this house. I was a meme. I was a prop. I was an engagement metric. Sarah had found a way to monetize my confusion, to turn my quiet suffering into a viral spectacle. And my son, my own son, was her laughing audience. The final vestiges of my sentimentality were the next to be targeted. In my jewelry box, a place they rarely bothered with, lay my mother's gold locket. It was a simple, heart-shaped piece, worn smooth with age, with a tiny, barely visible engraving of a lily of the valley on its surface. Inside were two faded, postage stamp-sized photos, my mother and my father on their wedding day. It was the only thing I had left of her. One morning, Sarah breezed into my room while I was making my bed. "Lily, I'm doing a vintage aesthetic photo shoot today for a jewelry brand, and I need an authentic piece to anchor the look. Can I borrow that old locket of yours?" The question was a formality. Her hand was already reaching for the box. I hesitated. "It's very precious to me, Sarah." She picked it up, her long, manicured nails clicking against the gold. "Oh, I know. It'll be perfect. It just screams heirloom quality. I'll be super careful." She was gone before I could protest further, the locket swinging from her fingers. A week passed. I saw the photos online. The locket was draped around her neck as she posed artfully in a sun-drenched field. The caption was all about the timeless elegance of inherited pieces. I felt a pang of nausea. The locket didn't belong there. It was a sacred object being used as a prop. I finally found the courage to ask for it back when I saw her in the kitchen. "Sarah, could I have my mother's locket, please? The photo shoot is over." She didn't even look up from her phone, just gave a breezy, dismissive shrug. "Oh, that thing. I think it got misplaced on set. We had so much stuff. Honestly, it was terribly dated anyway, Lily. You should think about getting something more modern." Misplaced. The word hung in the air, cold and sharp. Dated. She was talking about my mother. Ethan walked in then, grabbing a protein shake from the fridge. He'd overheard the last part. "What's this about?" Sarah answered for me, her voice dripping with practiced innocence. "Lily's upset about that old necklace. I think we lost it during my shoot. I feel awful, but it was an accident." Ethan looked at me, and his expression wasn't one of sympathy. It was one of annoyance. "Mom, it's just a thing. It's an object. Sarah's building a brand. It's her career. Can't you show some support? It's not the end of the world." It wasn't just a thing. It was my mother's smile. It was the weight of her hand in mine. It was the last physical piece of a love that existed long before this house, before this marriage, before this suffocating life. To him, it was an inconvenience. To her, it was a prop that had outlived its usefulness. I said nothing. I just turned and walked back to my room, the silence my only shield. That night, unable to sleep, I found myself aimlessly scrolling on the tablet they let me use. I don't know what impulse led me there, but I typed Sarah's name into the search bar of a popular resale app, Poshmark. And there it was. My heart stopped. It was my mother's locket, photographed against a backdrop of white velvet. The picture was clear enough that I could see the faint scratches near the clasp, the ones I knew by heart. The listing was under Sarah's storefront. The price was $300. And the description was what broke me. It read, "Authentic 14K gold vintage locket. A truly one-of-a-kind piece with so much history. Sad to part with it, but hoping it finds a loving new home." Sad to part with it. The lie was so audacious, so utterly shameless, that I felt the air leave my lungs. She hadn't misplaced it. She had stolen it. She had stolen my mother's memory and put a price tag on it, and my son had defended her. That was when I understood. It wasn't just about neglect or disrespect anymore. It was about erasure. They were systematically stripping me of my identity, my history, my very humanity, piece by piece. The final blow came a week before Christmas. The festive lights they'd strung up around the house felt like a mockery. They sat me down at the large dining table, the first time I'd been allowed there in months. The polished wood felt cold beneath my hands. A laptop was open at the head of the table, a man in a suit smiling professionally from the screen. He was their financial advisor. Ethan and Sarah sat on either side of me, their faces composed in masks of solemn concern. "Mom," Ethan began, his voice smooth and practiced, like he'd rehearsed this. "We need to talk about the future." He slid a thick stack of documents across the table towards me. The top page had a bold heading, Durable Power of Attorney. My blood ran cold. "With your needs," he continued, gesturing vaguely in my direction, "and the demands of the house, Sarah and I, along with Mr. Henderson here, feel it's time to make a more sustainable plan." Sarah placed her hand on mine. It was dry and cool. "We found a wonderful place for you, Lily. It's called Maplewood Meadows. It's an assisted living community. The grounds are lovely." Her voice was soft, persuasive. I stared at the papers. Admission forms. A facility 2 hours away, in a town I'd never even heard of. "What about the house?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "The house is just too much for us to manage with your care, Mom," Ethan said, avoiding my eyes. "We're selling it. We've already accepted an offer. This is for the best. It will free up capital and allow you to be in a place where people can look after you properly." The pieces clicked into place with a horrifying, deafening clang. The casual cruelty, the digital humiliation, the theft of my most precious heirloom, it was all groundwork. It was all part of a larger, colder design. They weren't just mistreating me, they were building a case against me, a case for my own incompetence. Then, the final devastating truth emerged. "We wanted to get this all settled before our trip," Sarah added, smiling sweetly. "We'll be going to Aspen, as you know. When we get back, we'll help you with the move. The plan is for you to be settled in at Maplewood the day after Christmas." Aspen, the ski trip. It wasn't just a vacation they were excluding me from. It was a practice run, a trial for my final abandonment. And the garage. That night, they'd threatened to make me sleep in the garage with a microwave dinner. That wasn't a cruel joke. I saw it now. It was the alternative. It was what they would have done, what they would still do, if I refused to sign away my home, my autonomy, my life. I looked from my son's placid face to my daughter-in-law's triumphant smile. I was staring into the eyes of my executioners, and they were offering me a pen. The cold in the garage had a life of its own. It wasn't the passive, empty cold of a winter's night. It was an active, penetrating force, seeping through the thin wool of my sweater, crawling up my spine and settling deep in my bones. It smelled of stale gasoline, forgotten cardboard, and the faint, sad aroma of the microwaved turkey dinner that sat, mostly uneaten, on a TV tray beside my cot. This was my Christmas Eve. A fluorescent bulb hummed a single, monotonous note overhead, casting long, distorted shadows that danced like specters in the periphery of my vision. In this forgotten corner of my own home, a tomb of concrete and steel, the silence was broken only by the hum of the bulb and the rhythmic thrumming of the deep freezer against the far wall. It was in this profound isolation, this deliberate, curated emptiness, that a memory surfaced, unbidden. It wasn't a warm, festive memory of Christmases past, but something sharp and cold, like a shard of glass working its way out of an old wound. The day after Robert's funeral. The air in Mr. Davies's mahogany-paneled office had been thick with the scent of old paper and fresh grief. He had pushed a small, surprisingly heavy box across his polished desk. It was wrapped in plain brown paper and sealed with a thick, unforgiving layer of red wax, stamped with Robert's personal signet ring, an interlocking R and H. Robert's instructions were absolute, Lily, Mr. Davies had said, his voice a low, somber rumble. He avoided my eyes, instead staring at the box as if it were a venomous creature. "You are to open this only in the most dire of circumstances. Specifically, if you believe your welfare is in jeopardy from your own family." The words had chilled me then, a bizarre and paranoid addendum to a life already shattered by loss. Jeopardy from Ethan? My son? The idea was absurd, a final possessive flourish from a husband who had always viewed the world, and everyone in it, as a potential threat. I had taken the box home and buried it deep within my old sewing kit, a floral-patterned relic from a gentler time, nestled among spools of thread and packets of needles. I buried it with the prayer that I would never have to confront whatever final piece of darkness my husband had deemed necessary to leave behind. I prayed I would never have a reason to break that seal. Tonight, my prayers had run out. My joints protested with a chorus of creaks and groans as I pushed myself off the cot. Each step across the cold concrete floor was a deliberate act of will. I left the garage, entering the main house through the utility room. The air inside was different, scrubbed, sterile, and silent, controlled by Archimedes with an unnerving precision. It was also, I noted with a familiar pang of bitterness, a comfortable 72 degrees, a warmth I was not permitted to enjoy. I avoided the main living areas, a ghost in my own home, my stockinged feet making no sound on the polished Italian marble floors. The house was a monument to Robert's genius and his paranoia, sleek, minimalist, and utterly impenetrable. It was also a stage for Sarah's meticulously crafted online life, every surface gleaming, every cushion plumped, ready for its close-up. My sewing room, now redesignated as a storage space, was at the back of the house, overlooking the darkened, snow-dusted garden. The air inside was musty, filled with the ghosts of forgotten hobbies. I knelt, my knees aching, and pulled the heavy sewing box from the bottom of a linen closet. The floral pattern was faded, the wicker slightly frayed at the edges. It felt like an artifact from another person's life. My fingers, numb with cold and age, fumbled with the contents. I pushed aside fabric squares, half-finished embroidery hoops, and packets of buttons until my fingertips brushed against the hard, unyielding shape of the box. It was just as I remembered it. Heavy. Cold. Final. Returning to the garage felt like a retreat into my designated prison cell, but it was the only place I felt truly alone, unobserved by the house's countless invisible sensors. I sat on the edge of the cot, the box in my lap. The red wax seal was brittle with age. I pressed my thumb against it, and it broke with a dry, definitive crack that sounded unnaturally loud in the silence. The sound of a pact being broken, or a promise being kept. There was no letter inside, no lengthy explanation, no fond farewell. Robert was never a man for sentiment. Instead, resting on a bed of black velvet, was a single, obsidian black card, cool and smooth to the touch. It was made of some kind of metal or dense polymer, heavier than it looked. Etched on its surface in stark, clinical white letters were 5 words. 5 words that felt like a key turning in a lock deep inside the walls of the house itself. Archimedes, execute Protocol 0. On the back, almost an afterthought, was a phone number, etched in the same white script. My hand was shaking as I pulled out my old simple flip phone. The only one Ethan allowed me to have, to avoid confusing you, Mom. I punched in the numbers, my heart hammering against my ribs. The phone rang only once before a familiar voice answered, a voice I hadn't heard in years. It was hushed, grave, as if he had been expecting this call in the dead of night for a very long time. Mr. Davies. Lily, he said, his voice devoid of surprise, only a deep, weary resignation. Are you certain you want to do this? And the question hung in the cold air between us, heavy with unspoken implications. I found the box, Mr. Davies. They left me in the garage for Christmas. They're planning to get rid of me. I don't know what Protocol 0 is, but Robert said— I know what Robert said, he interrupted, his tone sharpening with urgency. And you need to understand, Lily. Protocol 0 is absolute. It is a scorched earth command. There is no undoing it. Once initiated, the process is automated, and it is irreversible. He paused, and I could hear the faint rustle of papers on his end. Before you make a decision, you can never take back. There are things you must know. Obstacles you will face the moment you proceed. This is not just a matter of pressing a button. A new wave of cold, this one born of fear, washed over me. Obstacles. What obstacles? The first, he said, his voice dropping to a near whisper, is a legal gauntlet they've already laid for you. Lily, Ethan, and Sarah are not amateurs. They've been planning this for months. 2 days ago, their lawyers filed a preliminary petition for an emergency conservatorship over you and your estate. The words hit me like a physical blow. Conservatorship. A legal term for rendering a person powerless, for declaring them mentally unfit to manage their own life. On what grounds? I whispered, my voice hoarse. On the grounds of cognitive decline and erratic behavior, he said, and I could almost hear the distaste in his voice. And they have a mountain of evidence. Sarah's social media, Lily. Every post, every video she's ever taken of you. The ones where you're struggling with the television remote, where you can't figure out the new coffee maker, where you look confused by the smart home's voice commands. They aren't just cruel little jokes for her followers. They are a curated, public-facing dossier designed to paint you as senile and incapable. Her lawyer intends to present this portfolio to a judge as a timeline of your deteriorating mental state, witnessed by her millions of followers. I sank back onto the cot, the phone feeling slick in my hand. The humiliation. It wasn't just private degradation. It was a public spectacle, a weapon they had been sharpening in plain sight all along. The hashtags flashed in my mind. Hashtag caring for our elders. Family first. It was all a lie, a carefully constructed narrative to justify my eventual erasure. If you activate Protocol 0, Mr. Davies continued, his voice relentless, an action of this magnitude, this complexity, they will use it as the ultimate proof of your instability. They will argue it's a paranoid, destructive fantasy of a confused old woman. The first 60 minutes after you initiate the protocol will be a war, Lily, a war for your credibility, a war you will have to win before they can lock you down legally and shut the whole thing off. The phone went silent, but the weight of his words pressed down on me. This wasn't a simple act of defiance. It was a declaration of war against my own son, a war in which my own mind was the first casualty they would claim. The cold of the garage no longer seemed to come from the outside. It was radiating from within, a chilling bloom of doubt and fear. This was my son, the boy I had taught to ride a bike, whose scraped knees I had bandaged, whose favorite bedtime story I could still recite by heart. The man who now stood ready to have me declared insane to steal my home. Could I do it? Could I pull the trigger on a weapon I didn't even understand, knowing it could backfire so catastrophically? The image of a courtroom flashed in my mind. Sarah, weeping crocodile tears, showing a judge a video of me looking lost in my own kitchen, while Ethan stood beside her, his face a mask of feigned concern and sorrow. Doubt was a suffocating fog, clouding my resolve. This was Ethan. My child. And what about the children? Leo and Mia. My beautiful, innocent grandchildren. They adored their father. They loved their life in this big, shiny house. What would this Protocol 0 do to them? Destroying Ethan and Sarah meant destroying their world, too. Tainting their childhoods with a scandal so toxic it would follow them for the rest of their lives. Was my freedom, my dignity, worth the price of their innocence? I ended the call with Mr. Davies, promising to think, to consider the consequences, but my mind was a maelstrom of conflicting loyalties. I needed to see their faces, not the sneering, cruel faces of my captors, but the faces of the family I had loved, the family I was about to obliterate. My fingers, clumsy on the small screen of my phone, navigated to the family's shared cloud storage account. It was one of the few digital spaces I still had access to, mostly so Sarah could airdrop photos for me to look at. A hollow performance of inclusivity. The screen filled with images. Leo's 6th birthday party, his face smeared with chocolate cake. Mia at her first ballet recital, a tiny, proud figure in a pink tutu. Family vacations to the beach. Ethan lifting a squealing Mia into the air, the sun glinting off the water behind them. A photo of me, holding a newborn Leo, my face etched with a joy so pure it felt like it belonged to another woman, in another lifetime. Each photo was a knife twisting in my gut. This was the life I would be torching. This was the love, however fractured and conditional, that I would be turning to ash. I was a mother, a grandmother. My primary instinct, carved into my very DNA, was to protect, not to destroy. My thumb scrolled listlessly through the images, my resolve crumbling with each happy, smiling face. Perhaps I could endure. I had endured Robert's possessiveness. I could endure this. I could fade away quietly into the state-run home they had chosen for me. I could become the ghost they wanted me to be. And in doing so, preserve this fragile illusion for my grandchildren. And then, as my thumb hovered over a picture of the four of them in Aspen, all bundled in designer ski gear, a banner notification slid down from the top of the screen. It was a new text message, not to my phone, but to Sarah's, synced to the family cloud. The name on the notification read, Jessica B., her best friend. My breath caught in my throat. I watched, frozen, as the message preview appeared. Jessica B., OMG, Aspen looks amaze. So glad you ditched the old bat. You deserve this break. My blood ran cold. The old bat, the casual venomous cruelty of it, stole the air from my lungs. Before I could even process the first message, a reply bubble appeared, a sign that Sarah was typing back at that very moment. I watched, mesmerized, as her words materialized on my screen, a real-time broadcast of her contempt. Sarah, had to be done. Ethan's finally on board to sell this mausoleum and get her put away for good. The papers are signed. Just gotta survive the holiday guilt trip, LOL. Freedom in T-2 days. The guilt didn't just evaporate, it was violently incinerated. The fog of doubt was burned away by the white-hot rage that flared in my chest. The ghost of a mother's love, the thing that had held me back, died in that instant. It was replaced by something else, something cold and hard and clear, like a diamond forming under immense pressure. Mausoleum. Put away for good. Freedom. The love wasn't the illusion. The happy family in the photographs was the illusion. The son I remembered, the laughing father on the beach, was a ghost. The man who existed now was a stranger, a conspirator who saw his own mother as a piece of property to be disposed of. There was nothing left to save. There was only a debt to be collected. My phone rang again. It was Mr. Davies. I answered on the first ring, my voice steady, devoid of the tremor it had held just moments before. I've made my decision, I said. There was a long pause on the other end. I thought you might, he said, his voice heavy. That's why I'm calling back. Because if you're going forward, there's more you need to know. Obstacle number 3 is not a legal strategy or an emotional weakness, Lily. It's the truth. The full, monstrous truth about Protocol Zero. And about Robert. I braced myself. Tell me. This house, Archimedes, it's more than a smart home. It's a digital fortress. A bank vault. And Robert was not just a brilliant architect. Mr. Davies took a deep, shuddering breath. Lily, do you remember the apex financial collapse in the late 90s? The Ponzi scheme that wiped out thousands of investors. Teachers, firefighters, small business owners, their life savings vanished overnight. The mastermind was never identified. They called him the architect because of the intricate, flawless structure of the fraud. A horrifying suspicion began to dawn, so monstrous I could barely let myself form the thought. Robert. Robert was the architect, Davies confirmed, his voice flat with the weight of the confession. He built the scheme, and when it was about to collapse, he walked away clean. The authorities, the SEC, the FBI, they never found the money. $80 million. Because it wasn't in a bank. He converted it, piece by piece, into a labyrinth of offshore cryptocurrency wallets, secured by an encryption key so complex it would take a government supercomputer a century to crack. Archimedes doesn't just control the lights, Lily. Archimedes holds the keys to that $80 million. The garage seemed to tilt on its axis. My husband. The man I had shared a bed with for 47 years. A high-level criminal, a thief on a grand scale. The luxury I had lived in, the security I had taken for granted. It was all built on the ruins of thousands of other people's lives. The house wasn't a fortress to protect us from the world. It was a dragon's hoard, built to protect his stolen treasure. Protocol Zero, Mr. Davies continued, his voice pulling me back from the brink of shock, does 2 things with that money. First, it liquidates every last cent. Second, it uses Robert's own meticulous records, which are also stored in the AI's core, to identify every single victim of the Apex scheme, or their descendants. It then deposits the full amount of their original investment, adjusted for inflation, directly into their accounts. It also publishes a full signed confession from Robert, which I have in my possession, taking responsibility for the entire affair. It's a posthumous act of restitution. For a moment, a sliver of warped pride cut through my horror. Even in his criminality, Robert's exit strategy was one of breathtaking, obsessive genius. But then, Mr. Davies's voice grew darker still. But there's a more horrifying twist, Lily, a more immediate one. There's a reason Robert's final instruction mentioned a threat from your own family. The system has been active since the day it was installed. And part of its core programming, unknown to anyone but Robert and now me, was to monitor all network traffic that passed through the house's servers. Emails, texts, financial transactions, everything. He paused, letting the implications sink in. Ethan. He didn't just inherit his father's house, Lily. He inherited his methods. For the past 18 months, he's been running his own, smaller-scale fraud scheme. Investment fraud, targeting retirees through online seminars. It's not on the scale of Apex, but it's sophisticated, and it's deeply illegal. Archimedes has been watching the entire time. It has recorded every email, every wire transfer, every doctored financial statement. It has compiled a complete, unassailable package of evidence. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place, and the picture it formed was grotesque. Protocol Zero won't just take their personal money from their bank accounts, Mr. Davies said, his voice barely a whisper now. It won't just expose Sarah's cruelty to the world. It will bundle every piece of incriminating data on Ethan's scheme and deliver it simultaneously to the Securities and Exchange Commission, the IRS, and the FBI's white-collar crime division. It will not just leave him broke. It will make your son a felon, a federal felon, Lily. It will send him to prison for a very, very long time. The choice was no longer about my house. It was no longer about my dignity. It was no longer even about revenge. The card in my hand was not a key to my freedom. It was a trigger. A trigger for a weapon of mass financial and legal destruction, aimed directly at the heart of what was left of my family. The question was no longer, can I do this? The question was, do I have any other choice? I looked around the cold, gray garage. This concrete box was the cell they had built for me. But the real prison was the one they had built for themselves, a prison of lies, greed, and cruelty. And my husband, from beyond the grave, had given me the only key. Thank you, Mr. Davies, I said, my voice as cold and hard as the obsidian card in my hand. You've told me everything I need to know. I ended the call. The choice was made. It was not a choice for my freedom. It was a choice for a truth so terrible, it had to be brought into the light. The lawyer's voice, a dry and distant echo of professional sympathy, had faded from my ear, but his words hung in the sterile air of the garage like frost. $80 million, a Ponzi scheme. My son, my Ethan, following in the footsteps of a father he never truly knew, and the final, brutal confirmation, Sarah's text message glowing on the lawyer's forwarded email. The old hag. It was a strange sort of liberation. The pain was so vast, so complete, that it circled back on itself and became something else entirely. A clarity, a cold, hard, perfect peace. For 2 years, I had been drowning in a sea of confused grief, of bewildered hurt, of a desperate, clinging love for a son who was already gone. But they had finally given me the one thing I needed to survive, the truth. And the truth was a weapon. I make my choice. There is no other. There is no longer a grieving mother, a confused grandmother, a frail old woman to be managed and discarded. Those parts of me have been surgically excised by betrayal. What remains is something else, something harder. My bare feet are cold against the polished concrete of the garage floor. I look at the microwave dinner they left for me, a congealed monument to their contempt. I don't push it away. I simply turn my back on it and walk to the door leading into the house. It's locked, of course, for my safety. But that lock was designed for the woman I used to be, not the woman I am now. My hand rests on the biometric panel. It glows green. Sarah and Ethan had access, but they never had root access. Only Robert and I did. My fingerprint was still a master key, a forgotten relic of a time when this was my home. The lock clicks open with a soft, deferential sigh. I walk through the silent, opulent rooms of my prison. The cavernous living room, with its 2-story ceilings and cold, minimalist furniture chosen by Sarah to be Instagrammable. The gourmet kitchen, where I was forbidden to cook lest I make a mess. The formal dining room, where I had eaten alone for 2 years while they ate in front of the television. Each space is a fresh wound. Each object a testament to my erasure. The house AI, which for 2 years has obeyed the chirpy, demanding commands of Sarah. Archimedes, play my chill vibes playlist. Archimedes, dim the lights for a selfie. Now awaits only mine. It is a silent, dormant beast, and I am its true master. I am the true system administrator. I ascend the floating staircase, my hand trailing along the cold glass balustrade. My steps make no sound on the thick, plush carpet of the upper hallway. My destination is the master suite, their suite. It was once my room, mine and Robert's. Now it smells of Sarah's cloying perfume and Ethan's expensive generic cologne. They have colonized my life, my home, my memories. I ignore their things, the designer clothes spilling out of the closet, the half-empty glasses of wine on the nightstands, the tablet still open to Sarah's social media feed, a grid of curated lies. I walk to the far end of the vast walk-in closet, to a section they never bothered to explore. Behind a row of Robert's old mothballed suits, there is another wall. It looks solid, but I press a particular knot in the wood paneling, and a section glides open silently, revealing a small, hidden space. My personal closet. A time capsule. Inside, the air is still and smells faintly of cedar and forgotten things. Here are the clothes of the woman I was. Sensible wool skirts, silk blouses, dresses from a life before this one. And at the very back, hanging in a sealed garment bag, is the dress. A simple, black sheath dress, sleeveless, high-necked, impeccably tailored. The dress I wore to Robert's funeral. My fingers unzip the bag, the sound unnaturally loud in the profound silence. The fabric is a heavy matte crepe. It feels cool and solid in my hands. I remember the day of the funeral. The blur of sympathetic faces, the meaningless words, the crushing weight of a future I couldn't imagine. I had felt like a ghost that day, a hollowed-out thing being moved through a series of rituals. Ethan had held my arm, his grip firm, his face a mask of filial piety. He was already planning this, even then. The thought sends not a pang of sorrow, but a surge of crystalline resolve through my veins. I strip off the worn, comfortable sweatsuit I've been living in, a uniform of my subjugation. I let it fall to the floor. I stand for a moment in the dim light, looking at my 72-year-old body in the full-length mirror. The loose skin, the roadmap of veins, the slight stoop of my shoulders. Sarah's videos had framed this body as a symbol of decay and incompetence. They saw weakness. They were wrong. They saw an old woman. They did not see the architect of the digital world they so casually inhabited. They did not see the mind that had once run circles around men half my age in rooms filled with the smoke of ambition and the hum of mainframe computers. I slip the black dress on. It fits perfectly. The familiar weight of it settles on my shoulders like a mantle of office. It is not the dress of a mourner anymore. It is armor. It is a declaration. I am no longer a victim being acted upon. I am the executor of a will, not just Robert's will, with its dark, complicated legacy, but my own. I look at my reflection again. The simple, severe lines of the dress transform me. The stoop in my shoulders is gone, replaced by a straight, rigid posture. My face, framed by the high collar, looks etched from stone. The woman in the mirror is not Lily Hayes, the sweet, dotty grandmother. She is a conductor, stepping onto the podium to begin a symphony she did not write, but which she alone can bring to its crashing, devastating crescendo. I turn away from the mirror and walk back out into the house. The performance is about to begin. My audience of 2 is hundreds of miles away in Aspen, laughing, drinking, celebrating their freedom from the old hag. They have no idea the theater is their own life, and the final act has just begun. I walk with a purpose I haven't felt in years, my bare feet silent on the cold marble floors of the main level. The house is a mausoleum, but I am not the one who is dead. I am the ghost in the machine, and I am about to haunt them for the rest of their lives. I begin the sequence. It is a symphony of quiet actions, a physical ballet of memory and intent, a series of passwords known only to me and the ghost of my husband. Each step is a key, and each key unlocks a deeper level of control. My first destination is the great room, dominated by the floor-to-ceiling fireplace. Robert had designed it himself, a monolith of rough-hewn gray stone trucked in from a quarry in Vermont. He'd called it the heart of the home. For me, it had always felt like a tombstone planted in the center of our lives. Sarah loved to pose in front of it, her hand resting artfully on the mantel, hashtagging #cozy nights and #dream home. She never once noticed the details. Robert was all about the details. The mantel is a single, massive slab of polished granite. Lined up on it are meaningless, expensive objects Sarah bought to fill the space. I ignore them. My eyes are on the fireplace surround itself. A mosaic of hundreds of individual stones, each unique in shape and texture. My hand, steady now, reaches out. I remember a summer evening long ago. Ethan was a teenager, sullen and distant. Robert and I were sitting here, a fire crackling. He'd taken my hand, his own large and warm, and traced a pattern on the stones. "An architect's secrets, Lily," he'd murmured, his voice a low rumble. "Everything has a hidden structure, a weak point. A key." He guided my finger to a specific stone. "The third one from the left, on the 5th row up. Feel it. It's smoother than the others. Remember that." At the time, I thought it was a strange, sentimental moment, one of his quirks. Now I understand. It wasn't sentiment. It was instruction. My fingers find it instantly. The third stone. It feels cool and unnaturally smooth under my fingertips, a polished worry stone hidden amongst the rough terrain of the facade. I press it. Not hard, just a firm, deliberate pressure. For a second, nothing happens. The silence in the room remains absolute. Then I feel it more than hear it. A low, resonant thrum that seems to vibrate up from the foundations of the house itself. It's a deep, sub-audible hum, the sound of a vast and powerful engine being roused from a long slumber. On the discreet, dark control panel by the entryway, a single pinprick-sized LED, one I haven't seen lit in years, shifts from red to amber. Stage 1 complete. Next, the library. Robert's sanctuary. The one room Sarah and Ethan rarely entered, intimidated by the sheer volume of books they had no intention of ever reading. It smells of leather, paper, and dust, the scent of my own history. This was where I'd retreat when Robert's possessiveness became too suffocating, losing myself in stories of other worlds. The walls are lined, floor to ceiling, with custom-built mahogany shelves. Thousands of books stand shoulder to shoulder like silent soldiers. My target is specific. I walk to the far wall, to the section dedicated to American literature. My eyes scan the spines. Faulkner, Hemingway, Fitzgerald. And there it is, Moby Dick. But not just any copy. It is a first edition, rebound in dark blue Moroccan leather, a gift I had given Robert for our 10th anniversary. He had been obsessed with the book, with Ahab's monomaniacal quest. "He's not the villain, Lily," he once argued, his eyes alight with a fire that scared me a little. "He's the only one who understands that to achieve something truly great, you must be willing to sacrifice everything. Everyone." Another lesson I didn't understand until now. I take the heavy volume from the shelf. My fingers trace the golden whale embossed on the cover. I think of the locket Sarah stole, the gold melted down and sold for a pittance. The casual, cruel desecration of memory. My grip on the book tightens. I do not open it. The book itself is not the key. The empty space it leaves behind is. I reach into the void on the shelf. My fingers find a small, almost invisible indentation in the back paneling. I press it. A soft, pneumatic hiss, and the entire section of shelving, about 3 feet wide, recedes into the wall by 1/4 of an inch with a satisfying mechanical click. It's not a secret door from a movie. It's far more subtle. It's a circuit being completed, a physical switch in a chain of commands. The low hum in the house deepens in pitch, becoming a steady, palpable vibration. The amber light on the control panel turns to a brilliant, electric blue. Stage 2 complete. The Leviathan is stirring. The final key is the most painful. It sits in the music room, a space we'd built for Ethan when he'd shown a fleeting interest in the piano as a child. A magnificent Steinway grand piano, its black lacquer polished to a mirror shine, dominates the room. It's been silent for a decade. Sarah sometimes drapes a cashmere throw over it for photos, another prop in her stage-managed life. I sit on the cold leather of the bench. My hands, wrinkled and marked with age spots, hover over the pristine ivory keys. I can still feel the ghost of a smaller hand in mine, guiding my son's clumsy fingers. This way, sweetie, like this. The memory is so vivid, so sharp, it's a physical ache in my chest. He was 7 years old, his hair a mess of blonde curls, his face full of innocent concentration as he tried to mimic the simple tune I was teaching him. A lullaby my own mother had taught me. A melody of pure, unconditional love. And now, I must turn that love into a weapon. I must profane that sacred memory. This is the cruelest part of Robert's design. He knew this would be the hardest step, the one that would test my resolve to its absolute limit. He was weaving my own heart into the very fabric of his failsafe. My breath catches. For a single agonizing moment, I hesitate. The face of my 7-year-old boy flashes in my mind. The son I loved, the son who, in some corner of my heart, I still love. But then, another image replaces it. The image of his face on the video call, cold and dismissive, as he told me I was going to a home. The sound of his voice, devoid of any warmth, backing up Sarah's lies. The words on the text message, the old hag. The boy is gone. The man who replaced him is a stranger, a thief, an echo of his father's worst impulses. My resolve hardens into something unbreakable. My fingers, stiff with arthritis, find their positions on the keys. I begin to play. 7 notes, C, G, G, A, G, E, C. The melody of the lullaby. Each note hangs in the dead air of the house, perfectly resonant, achingly clear. It's a ghost of a song, a melody of love now repurposed for destruction. With each note, a memory surfaces and dies. The first note, the weight of him as a newborn in my arms. The second, his first day of school, his small hand clutching mine. The third, the pride in his eyes when he won the science fair. The fourth, fifth, sixth, a cascade of moments, of laughter, of scraped knees, of bedtime stories, and the final 7th note, the devastating realization that it is all gone. All of it was a prelude to this single, terrible moment of betrayal. As the last note fades into the oppressive silence, the house comes alive around me. It is not with lights and music. It is something far more profound. The low hum I'd been hearing escalates into a deep, powerful thrum that vibrates through the piano bench, through my bones, through the very air I breathe. The polished floors tremble slightly. In the walls, I can hear the whir of cooling fans kicking into high gear, the frantic, rhythmic clicking of server racks and encrypted processes activating after years of dormancy. Hidden panels in the ceiling slide open just a fraction of an inch, revealing the blinking, pulsing lights of the house's true brain. I am not in a house anymore. I am inside a machine, a fortress, Robert's digital Leviathan. And I have just woken it from its slumber. The blue light on the main panel by the door is now flashing, a steady rhythmic pulse, a heartbeat. It is waiting, waiting for its conductor, waiting for its final command. I stand before the main home hub screen in the living room, the heart of the house, its digital soul. The polished glass is dark, reflecting my own ghostly image. A woman I barely recognize, forged in the crucible of a quiet, protracted war. The silence in the house isn't empty. It's heavy, coiled, waiting for a command. For years, this silence was my enemy, a constant reminder of my isolation. Tonight, it is my accomplice. My breath is steady, a slow and even rhythm in my chest. The fear that had been my constant companion for years, a cold knot in my stomach, had finally dissolved, replaced by a clarity as sharp and cold as a shard of ice. This wasn't about rage anymore. Rage was a hot, messy emotion, and what I felt now was the opposite. It was a perfect, crystalline stillness, a purpose. My hand, wrinkled and spotted with age, moves with a steadiness that surprises me. I reach into the grand stone fireplace, a monument to Robert's architectural ego. My fingers, surprisingly nimble, brush past soot and stray bits of wood until they find it. The one loose brick on the left side, third row from the bottom. I remember the day Robert said it, a secret smile playing on his lips. "Every fortress needs a hidden key, my love," he'd said, his voice a low rumble, a final fail-safe. I hadn't understood then. I'd thought it was a game, another one of his eccentricities. Now I understood it was a key to a weapon. The brick slides out with a soft, gritty sound, revealing a dark cavity within the stone. Dust motes dance in the faint light from the screen. My fingers find what they're looking for, a small, cold glass panel, perfectly flush with the inner wall of the cavity. The biometric reader. Robert had insisted on it. "Only you, Lily. Your touch is the only one that matters." Was it a gesture of love or possession? With Robert, the two were always indistinguishable. I press my thumb against the glass. For a heart-stopping second, nothing happens. The silence stretches, threatening to snap. Then, a soft chime, almost apologetic, echoes in the cavernous room, and the panel glows with a vibrant, emerald green. A single line of white text materializes on the dark hub screen before me. Identity verified. Lily Hayes. Administrative override enabled, awaiting command. This is it. The point of no return. I think of Ethan, my son. The boy I taught to ride a bike, whose scraped knees I bandaged. The man who now saw me as a burden, a piece of furniture to be discarded. I think of Sarah, her saccharine smiles for the camera, her venomous whispers when she thought I couldn't hear. I think of my mother's locket, sold for a pittance, its sentimental value converted into a few more likes, a few more dollars for their hollow lifestyle. I think of the nursing home forms, their signatures, a final, brutal signature on my erasure. The lawyer's words echo in my mind, Robert's grand deception, Ethan's pathetic imitation of it. My son, a common thief masquerading as a visionary, just like his father. The last thread of maternal hesitation snaps. I am not destroying my son. I am merely revealing what he and his father had already built, a dynasty of lies. I take a final steadying breath, the air tasting of dust and ozone. I look at my reflection in the screen, at the old woman with the fire of a forgotten programmer in her eyes. My voice, when it comes, is not the frail, hesitant whisper they were used to. It is clear, unwavering, and resonant in the absolute stillness of the house. It is the voice of a ghost reclaiming her domain. Archimedes, I say, the name feeling alien and powerful on my tongue. Execute Protocol 0. The screen flashes once, a brilliant, blinding white that washes out my reflection. Then, it returns to black, with a new line of text in stark, blood-red letters. Protocol 0. Initiated. Executing digital tsunami sequence. Estimated completion, 47 minutes. The low hum of the house deepens, the sound of a predator stirring from a long slumber. I can feel the vibration through the floorboards, a subtle thrum of immense power being unleashed. I am no longer just a woman in a house. I am the conductor of a digital orchestra, and the symphony of ruin has just begun. I don't have to see them to know what is happening. Archimedes, in its cold, infinite wisdom, grants me a small window in the top right corner of the hub screen, not a video feed of their room, but a public feed. Sarah's Instagram Live, a window into their world, just as they had given the world a window into my humiliation. There she is. In their opulent Aspen Hotel suite, fire crackling in a marble fireplace behind them, fake snow dusting the windows. Sarah is holding a flute of champagne, her face flushed with victory and expensive alcohol. She is laughing, a shrill, self-satisfied sound. Ethan is beside her, arm draped possessively around her shoulder, a smug grin on his face. They are toasting. And so, Sarah says to her thousands of followers, her voice dripping with faux sincerity, while it's hard being away from family during the holidays, sometimes you just need to recharge. Self-care is so important, you guys. #blessed #Aspen getaway. I watch, detached, as if viewing a nature documentary about the predictable behavior of scavengers. I feel nothing but a profound, chilling emptiness. And then it starts. A flicker on her phone screen, which she holds up for her audience to see. It buzzes, a furious, angry vibration against the polished table. She glances down, her smile faltering for a fraction of a second. The notification is from her bank. Archimedes displays a copy of the text on my screen. Banking alert, insufficient funds, account balance, $0. Her brow furrows. She dismisses it with a nervous laugh. Whoops, tech issues. Then her phone buzzes again, and again, a cascade. The savings account, the joint checking, the investment portfolio they'd siphoned my pension into. On my screen, I see the confirmation scrolling by, a digital obituary for their wealth. Transfer complete, $54,281.30. New balance, $0. Transfer complete, $12,745.91. New balance, $0. Portfolio liquidated. Funds transferred. New balance, $0. It is relentless. It is absolute. Ethan's phone, sitting on the table, lights up. He picks it up, his own grin vanishing, replaced by a mask of confusion. The comments on Sarah's live feed begin to shift. What's happening? Is that real? Sarah, flustered, tries to regain control. Anyway, as I was saying. But she's interrupted by a new notification, this one from TikTok. It's a different kind of alert, a viral one. On my hub, Archimedes shows me the new account. It was created just moments ago. The username is @WillowCreekWatcher. It has one video. The thumbnail is a still from one of Sarah's own posts. A picture of her hugging me, her face a mask of loving concern. The video plays. There is no image, only audio. It's a phone recording, crystal clear. It's Sarah's voice from a call she made to her friend last week, the call I overheard that shattered the last of my illusions. God, I cannot wait until we can just ship the old bat off to that state facility. The audio plays, synced over slow-motion footage of her hugging me. Ethan finally agreed. We're free. No more pretending to care. We get the house. We get the money. We get our lives back. The view count on the video is not climbing. It's exploding. 1,000, 10,000, 50,000. The comments are a torrent of fury. Exposed. Hypocrite. #cancel Sarah. In the hotel room in Aspen, Sarah's face has gone from flushed pink to a ghastly, bloodless white. She stares at her phone, her hand trembling so hard the champagne flute slips from her fingers and shatters on the floor. Ethan snatches the phone from her, his eyes wide with horror as he sees the TikTok. The live feed is still running, capturing their silent, frozen panic for the entire world to see. He fumbles to end the broadcast, but it's too late. The damage is done. The first wave of the tsunami has hit, and they are already drowned. But Archimedes is just getting started. This is not a single wave. It is a blitzkrieg, a total, multi-front assault executed with the cold, inhuman precision only a machine could muster. The house hums around me, a low thrum of computational fury. The 47-minute clock is ticking down. A second video drops from @WillowCreekWatcher. This one is not audio. It is footage. Hidden camera footage, sourced from the very security system they use to monitor me. The camera in the living room. It shows Ethan and Sarah, a week ago, at the dining table, sliding the nursing home papers towards me. The audio is pristine. "It's for the best, Mom," Ethan's voice says, oozing false compassion. "You're not safe on your own. We've found a lovely place for you." "A state-run facility," Sarah adds, her voice like honey laced with arsenic. "You'll make new friends, and we can finally sell this big old house. It's what Dad would have wanted." The video is cross-cut with screenshots of the facility's website, a bleak, underfunded institution with dozens of one-star reviews citing neglect and abuse. The mask is not just slipping, Archimedes has ripped it off and set it on fire for the world to see. Simultaneously, a third, more devastating attack is launched. This one is silent, invisible to the public, but infinitely more catastrophic. On the main hub, I watch as Archimedes compiles a digital dossier. It moves with terrifying speed, pulling data from encrypted servers Robert had hidden within the house's mainframe. It retrieves transaction records from offshore accounts, decrypts incriminating emails between Ethan and his investors, and assembles a complete, irrefutable timeline of his fraudulent real estate scheme. Every lie, every stolen dollar, every broken promise, cataloged and footnoted. The final package, a 200-page PDF titled The Ethan Hayes Confidential Report, is created. A moment later, confirmation messages flash on my screen. Delivery confirmed. Securities and Exchange Commission, Digital Tip Line. Delivery confirmed. Internal Revenue Service, Criminal Investigation Division. Delivery confirmed. The Wall Street Journal, Investigative Unit. A silent, digital bomb has just detonated in the heart of my son's life, and he doesn't even know it yet. The fallout will be slow, legal, and absolute. Then comes the fourth act. The ghost in the machine finally speaks. Archimedes accesses a sound file buried deep in its core programming, a file labeled Robert's Contingency. My late husband's voice fills the room, not as a memory, but as a real, present sound. It's a posthumous confession, recorded years ago, his voice calm and measured as he details the full extent of his apex Ponzi scheme. He names names, details methods, and expresses a chilling, pragmatic regret. I built this house with stolen money, Robert's voice confesses, echoing off the stone and glass he so loved. $80 million taken from good people who trusted me. I cannot undo the damage, but I can, in my absence, ensure it is returned. Archimedes, my final creation, holds the key. Upon the execution of Protocol 0, all remaining assets tied to the Apex Fund are to be immediately and irrevocably transferred to a blind trust for the victims I created. Let this be my only legacy. As he speaks, I watch on the screen as the system executes his final command. A river of digital currency flows out of hidden crypto wallets and shadowy international accounts, converging into a single, massive fund, $80,000 USD, transferred to Apex Victim Compensation Trust. Justice, delivered by a dead man's machine. The final act is the most intimate, the most poetic. Archimedes pulls up a digital copy of the deed to the house at Willow Creek, my home, my prison. With a flurry of cryptographic keys and digital signatures, it executes a legal transfer. Ownership transfer. Pending. A moment later. Ownership transfer. Complete. The new owner is not a person. It is the Apex Victim Compensation Trust. This house, built on a foundation of fraud, will now be sold to repay the people my husband and son destroyed. The very last command is the simplest. A single email is drafted. The subject line, Immediate Eviction Notice. It is addressed to Ethan and Sarah's personal and work accounts. I watch a copy of it on my screen. It is formal, brutal, and legally ironclad. They have 24 hours to vacate the property they believe they are returning to. As a final, exquisite touch, Archimedes severs their connection to the house. Their smart home apps are disabled. Their digital keys are revoked. Their access codes are erased. The locks on the doors, the gates, the garage, all of it is now controlled by the trust. They are, in every conceivable way, locked out. The red text on the screen changes. Protocol 0. Complete. Total execution time, 47 minutes. The deep hum of the house recedes, returning to its quiet, ambient state. The silence is back, but it is different now. It is not the silence of loneliness. It is the silence of peace, the silence of a storm that has passed, leaving a clean, stark landscape in its wake. I have burned their world to the ground, using the very tools they used to torment me. And I did not have to raise my voice or lift a finger. I simply gave an order. And the house, my gilded cage, obeyed. The small, anonymous phone Mr. Davies had given me began to vibrate against the cold granite of the kitchen island. It was a persistent, angry buzz, a trapped insect beating its wings against glass. I glanced down. The screen was lit with a single stark text message, all in capital letters, a digital scream from a world I had just unplugged. "Mom, what did you do?" It was from Ethan. Before I could even process the crude finality of his words, the screen changed, his name and photo, a smiling, confident picture taken on a yacht somewhere, a life I was never a part of, flashed as the phone began to ring. The vibration was now accompanied by a frantic, tinny ringtone I hadn't bothered to change. It was a sound of pure panic, a desperate, clawing noise that sought to tear through the new quiet I was just beginning to inhabit. I watched it for a moment. The call ended. Immediately it started again, and again. A cascade of digital hysteria, each failed attempt to reach me growing in imagined pitch and desperation. He would be shouting now, his face red, maybe pacing the floor of that ostentatious Aspen suite. Sarah would be beside him, her perfectly curated mask of compassion finally cracking to reveal the raw greed and terror beneath. I could almost hear their voices, shrill and accusatory, echoing in the phantom limb of my memory. With a calmness that felt utterly foreign, utterly new, I reached out. My finger, wrinkled and a little unsteady, pressed the button on the side of the phone. The screen went dark. The ringing stopped. The vibration ceased. The silence that rushed back in to fill the void was different from any silence I had ever known in this house. Robert's silence had been heavy, a pressure in the ears, the expectant hush of a tomb he had built for us. The silence after he was gone, the one imposed by Ethan and Sarah, was a sterile, calculated thing. It was the silence of a laboratory, of observation, of being watched and managed by an invisible intelligence that measured the temperature of my water and the length of my days. It was the silence of erasure. But this was something else entirely. This was the deep, resonant silence of peace. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the living room, the first pale, golden fingers of the Christmas morning sun began to stretch across the sky, painting the eastern horizon in shades of rose and tangerine. I walked towards the light, my bare feet silent on the polished concrete floor that had always felt so cold and unforgiving. Today, it felt like solid ground. I stood before the vast expanse of glass, watching the world awaken. The house behind me was no longer a network of sensors and protocols. It was just a structure of steel, glass, and stone. For the first time since Robert drew the last blueprint, it was quiet. Not the programmed artificial quiet of Archimedes waiting for a command, but the profound, peaceful silence of a cage door, its lock shattered, swinging gently in the first morning breeze. I took a breath. It didn't catch in my chest. It filled my lungs completely. The air tasted clean. A few hours later, Mr. Davies's sensible sedan pulled silently into the driveway. He was the antithesis of this house, understated, efficient, and deeply human. He carried a worn leather briefcase and wore an expression of gentle solemnity. He didn't offer condolences or congratulations, just a firm, reassuring nod. "Lily," he said, his voice a quiet anchor in the vast, echoing space. "Are you ready?" I nodded. We sat at the massive dining table where I had so often eaten leftovers alone. He laid out a small stack of documents. They were surrender papers, mostly. Title transfers, relinquishments, acknowledgments. The legal death certificate for my life as Lily Hayes, mistress of the Glass Fortress. He slid a pen across the table. It was a simple, inexpensive ballpoint, not one of Robert's ostentatious fountain pens. I picked it up. Its plastic body was warm in my hand. I began to sign, my signature a little shaky but resolute. With each stroke of ink, I could feel a physical weight lifting. The deed to the house, transferring ownership to the victim's trust. A document acknowledging the dissolution of my financial ties to Ethan. I was signing away a fortune, a legacy, a monument of architecture, but it felt less like a loss and more like an exorcism. When the last paper was signed, Mr. Davies neatly stacked them, and placed them back in his briefcase. "It's done," he said. "The house is no longer yours." I looked around the cavernous living room at the stark, minimalist furniture chosen by Sarah for its aesthetic, not its comfort. I looked at the fireplace where Robert's secret was hidden in a stone. I looked at the piano where I played the final key to my own liberation. "No," I said, my voice clear and steady. "It's no longer my prison." Mr. Davies then pulled out a final, single folder. "There is one more thing. Robert, for all his sins, he was meticulous. He established a separate trust for you years ago, long before his larger enterprise began. It was funded with his initial legitimate earnings. I've had it vetted by 3 independent forensic accounting firms. It is completely clean, legally untouchable." He slid a bank card and a checkbook across the table. It wasn't a fortune, not by Robert's standards, but it was more than enough. It was freedom, distilled into a piece of plastic and a book of paper slips. It was the key to a small, quiet apartment in a city by the sea, a place where no one knew the name Hayes, where no one had ever heard of Archimedes. I stood up and walked to the door, carrying nothing but my small handbag with the burner phone and the new bank card inside. I didn't look back. There was nothing there for me. No memories I wished to keep, no ghosts I wished to honor. As I stepped over the threshold into the crisp Christmas air, a profound and painful truth settled in my heart, as gentle and final as a layer of fresh snow. I had lost a son, a daughter-in-law, and grandchildren today. But the realization was that I had truly lost them years ago, in 1,000 tiny cuts. In the first condescending explanation of how to use a remote, in the first staged photo for social media, in the first time my opinion was dismissed as the ramblings of old age. In the moment, they decided my love was a resource to be managed and my presence was a problem to be solved. What happened last night wasn't the tragedy itself. It was just the moment I finally stopped pretending it hadn't already happened. Today, I just signed the death certificate. Months drifted by like soft, healing clouds. My new life took shape in a small 2-bedroom apartment overlooking a quiet, tree-lined street. The silence here was different, too. It was filled with the gentle hum of a refrigerator, the distant laughter of children playing in the park, the chirping of sparrows on my windowsill. It was the sound of life, unassuming and real. I had plants now, thriving in the afternoon sun. I read books, not from a curated list on a tablet, but thick paper volumes from the local library, their pages smelling of history and other people's stories. One Tuesday morning, I was sitting in my favorite armchair, a cup of chamomile tea warming my hands, my laptop open on the table beside me. I was browsing a national news site, catching up on the world, when a headline in a sidebar caught my eye. Tech entrepreneur Ethan Hayes arrested by FBI in connection with nationwide fraud ring. Beneath the headline was his picture. It was a mugshot. The confident yacht club smile was gone, replaced by a slack-jawed, hollow-eyed stare of disbelief. His hair was unkempt, his designer suit replaced by a rumpled shirt. He looked like a stranger, a ghost from a life I no longer recognized as my own. I read a few lines of the article. It mentioned an anonymous, comprehensive data dump from an untraceable source, detailing years of wire fraud and conspiracy. It mentioned his wife, Sarah Hayes, described as a former social media personality whose online presence had been wiped out, first by a wave of digital evidence exposing her cruelty, and then by a tidal wave of public revulsion. Her accounts were now digital wastelands, graveyards filled with vitriolic comments and mocking memes. She was a digital ghost, haunting the ruins of the life she had so carefully fabricated. I felt nothing, not a flicker of triumph, not a pang of pity, not a whisper of regret. There was only a quiet, somber emptiness, the feeling one has when looking at a field after a necessary, cleansing fire. I moved the cursor and closed the laptop screen. The image of Ethan's face vanished. I picked up my tea and looked out the window. The sun was shining. The trees were green. The world kept turning. I did not seek revenge. Revenge is a hot, passionate act. This was cold, a simple matter of cause and effect. I had merely pulled the pin on a grenade my husband's secrets had built, a weapon my son's greed had forced into my hand. All I did was let it go. Some families are built on a foundation of love, their structures held together by shared laughter and mutual respect. Mine was built on a foundation of secrets, its elegant facade mortared with deception and control. And a foundation like that, no matter how beautiful or impressive, was always destined to crumble,